Hello and welcome to Bread of Life, a daily devotional program which each week features a different area pastor. Our speaker for this week is Pastor Phil Booe of Hebron.
Dear children loved by God, I'm sure you've heard the old saying, to err is human, to forgive divine. I wonder if you know who said it. Some attribute this famous line to Shakespeare. Others think it can be found somewhere in the Bible. Well, the man who actually coined the phrase was the poet Alexander Pope. It's just one line out of 750 others in his first major poem, an essay on criticism, which he penned when he was only 23. He wrote, "Ah, ne'er so dire a thirst of glory boast, nor in the critic let the man be lost. Good nature and good sense must ever join. To err is human, to forgive divine." Pope wrote this poem for aspiring authors, and this particular section was to remind them that everyone makes mistakes, and they should not be so critical of those who criticize them. But as Christians, is it possible for us to take more away from these words, especially that last line, to err is human, to forgive divine? It recalls our weak and sinful natures, our inability to obtain or dispense forgiveness on our own, and it reminds us that true forgiveness is not born out of the human will, but only from the divine and perfect will of God. In Matthew chapter 18, beginning with verse 21, we find that Peter has come to Jesus with a question. He asks, "Lord, how often will my brother sin against me, and I forgive him?" In his teachings, forgiveness was a common topic for Jesus. Its importance could not be understated, as humanity is woefully in the red because of our great debt of sin. Jesus taught the disciples what to do if someone sinned against them, but what about the one who wants forgiveness? The one who recognizes they've done wrong and now for the second, third, or fourth time in a row wants to make amends, wants to repay his debt. How many times must I forgive the one who sins against me? Peter asks. The question itself gives us insight into the human will. How many times? It's as if Peter wanted to know the bare minimum required to be a good Christian. I imagine Peter thought it was pretty generous to suggest 7 as an appropriate number of times to forgive one's erring brother or sister. After all, Jewish custom held that 3 times was plenty. After that, what use is there to keep on forgiving? But even with Peter's good intentions, he's still trying to put a limit on God's grace, isn't he? He's still trying to figure out at which point a person no longer deserves forgiveness. But what he's failing to recognize is that no one deserves God's forgiveness, and yet we receive it anyway. To err is human, to forgive divine. Jesus then tells a parable which illustrates the underlying absurdity of Peter's question. In the parable, a king calls a servant to pay his debt. He is told that he owes 10,000 talents. Now we're talking about an incredible amount of money. And yet what does he do? He underestimates what he owes and foolishly thinks that he can repay it. The servant begs the king, "Have patience with me, and I will pay you everything." Jesus says, "And out of pity for him, the master of that servant released him and forgave him the debt." In just one little line, we see the wonderful mercy of this king, and by correlation, the limitless grace of our God. The king was just in seeking payment for the debt he was owed, but in his mercy, he looked upon his servant and forgave him. Jesus is reminding Peter, and through his living word, he is also reminding us of God's great mercy and forgiveness. To err is human, to forgive divine. Dear brothers and sisters, our ability to forgive others is born out of the great mercy God has shown us. It is a powerful gift with the ability to settle disputes, heal broken hearts, and mend torn relationships. Yes, it is true. To err is human, to forgive divine. But I pray that you are all strengthened through God's word today to fully appreciate the power of divine forgiveness.
You've been listening to Pastor Phil Booe of Hebron, and this has been Bread of Life, a program to encourage you from God's Word.